Beneath the grandeur of Highclere Castle, famously depicted in Downton Abbey, lies a saga more tumultuous and enthralling than any television drama could hope to capture. The life of Almina, the Countess of Carnarvon, born through an adulterous affair, she became an heiress of tremendous wealth, financed expeditions to Egypt to uncover the tomb of King Tut, had an illegitimate child with the last son of the Maharaja, began an affair with the undertaker who buried her husband, was part of one of the most notorious alimony trials in the history of Britain, opened up abortion clinics for the wealthy, squandered her wealth, needing to survive on handouts, all while writers such as Conan Doyle said she was the victim of a mummy's curse. Join us this week as we look at the fascinating life of Lady Almina Victoria Maria Alexandra, the Countess of Carnarvon. Highclere Castle gained notoriety when it was used as the primary filming location for the show Downton Abbey. Lord Carnarvon inherited the property in 1890 after the death of his father. He enjoyed a hedonistic lifestyle, and though he was long on lineage, he was short on funds. He needed a rich wife to rescue him and his 300-room mansion from changing hands. The property itself dated back to the 8th century and had been owned by the bishops of Winchester, hence why the television show used the name Abbey. Luckily for him, he found one. Born under the shadow of illegitimacy, Almina Victoria Maria Alexandra was officially the daughter of Captain Frederick Charles Wombwell and his French wife, Marie. However, it was commonly known that her real father was Alfred de Rothschild, scion to the fabulously wealthy banking family. He was the director of the Bank of England, and in a bid to avoid scandal, he never admitted paternity. In compensation, he took on the role of her godfather and let it be known he was willing to offer a king's ransom for her dowry. Despite her scandalous birth, she was showered with the luxuries afforded by Rothschild's vast fortune. Her upbringing was a whirlwind of high society events, designed to erase any doubts of her place among the elite. Yet, the taint of her birth lingered, making her search for a suitable husband a fraught affair. Yet with the amount that was promised in her dowry, she had no shortage of suitors. At 19, Almina's life took a turn reminiscent of a fairy tale, albeit one with a pragmatic twist. She married George Herbert, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, not for love, but for mutual convenience. He needed her substantial dowry to salvage his dilapidated estates and clear his gambling debts. She needed his title for the societal acceptance she craved. This transactional union set the stage for a life of complex relationships and deep-seated loneliness. They were married in 1895 at Westminster Abbey. As Almina remarked upon taking residence at her new palatial estate, "I suppose if you know how many rooms you've got, you haven't got a very big house." With her new title and the Rothschilds' bottomless pit of money behind her, she threw lavish parties, including spending £300,000 on a party for the Prince of Wales. However, there was no real attraction between Almina and her husband. She soon began an affair with Prince Victor Duleep Singh, the son of the last Maharaja, who had been a close friend of her husband for many years. He stayed with them for months. However, Almina became pregnant. As the pregnancy progressed, she grew nervous, worried that the child would be of a darker Indian complexion. She decided to rent a house to have the child away from her husband. Then she could deal with the scandal and divorce. In 1898, her son, Henry George, was born with a light complexion. The skin tone did not rule out Victor as the father, seeing as he was the offspring of a white mother. Whatever the genetic truth, Lord Carnarvon accepted him as his genetic heir. However, her husband demanded Lady Almina break off all contact with Victor. The marriage survived, and 2 years later, a daughter was born. World War I was her finest hour, as she transformed Highclere into a hospital and convalescent home, playing the role of Florence Nightingale. Almina was enthusiastic and hired nurses to administer to patients returning from the war. In 1918, Sir Alfred Rothschild died, and Lord Carnarvon became involved with the archaeologist Howard Carter and became obsessed with his belief that in the Valley of the Kings, the boy king Tutankhamun's tomb lay undiscovered. It was Almina's fortune that funded the Earl's archaeological pursuits, eventually leading to the discovery of the tomb, a historical feat that would immortalize the Lord's name. Yet, the Earl would not live to bask in the glory of this discovery. He died from an infection following a mosquito bite in Egypt. This coincided with the lights in Egypt going out and his beloved dog dying, leading to Arthur Conan Doyle saying it was the curse of the mummy. Later, Almina was to share in this curse. With her husband dead, the property now passed to her son, who allowed her to live there for a few years, finally forcing her to move out to make room for his own family. Relations between Henry and his mother were difficult due to uncertainties around his paternity. In addition, she had an affair with his friend Tommy Frost, and she was loath to share her wealth with him, feeling he had achieved nothing. After leaving the property, she lavishly spent her fortune both on the worthwhile, continuing to fund expeditions in Egypt, and the worthless, namely her second husband. In the year she became a widow, she remarried Lieutenant Colonel Ian Denniston. They had been having an affair even while her husband was still alive. She had set him up in a nearby cottage. He proved helpful to her in money laundering. After a lifetime of free spending, she was running into financial difficulties. She sold the jewels and art she had received from Rothschild. Denniston's ex-wife, who had been denied alimony, came after him for support. There, her adultery came to light, and even King George aired his disgust. The country devoured the scandalous details, and the military dismissed Denniston. The judge, Justice McCarty, called the case the most bitterly conducted trial I have ever known, with the illegal exploits of both parties being exposed for all to see. Dorothy Denniston argued that she was entitled to compensation as her former husband had forced her to sleep with General Sir John Cowans, the Quartermaster General of the British Army in the Great War, in order to secure a promotion. It was a damning allegation with much supporting evidence, but one resolutely denied by Colonel Denniston, who counterclaimed that his former wife had slept her way around Europe and was not to be trusted. Almina was forced into the witness box, confessing to money laundering and adultery. On more than one occasion, she was on the point of fainting, so had smelling salts passed under her nose. The Countess's fame ensured the trial was splashed across the front pages of newspapers up and down the country. In the end, the case went in favor of Colonel Denniston, but not before blackening the names of all involved and costing Almina close to £400,000 in today's money in court fees and other related expenditures. When her husband died, she began an affair with his undertaker. By this time, her $100 million fortune was all but gone. In order to avoid insolvency, she opened a nursing home in central London that she called Alfred House. Patients likened the place to the Ritz Hotel. Dubbed the Ritz of nursing homes, members of British and foreign high society were treated in the most luxurious surroundings one could imagine for a hospital. Care in this institution was not cheap, but luckily for patients, Almina, forever the generous hostess, often failed to provide a bill at the end of a guest's stay. As one grateful patient recalled, she simply thought it was bad taste. She also followed in the footsteps of European clinics and began to offer pregnancy terminations. Abortions were illegal in Britain until 1967, so if Almina had been caught, she would have earned a long stretch in prison. The Second World War and the bombings of London saw Alfred House permanently close its doors in 1939. Over the next few years, Almina set up and was forced to close 2 other nursing homes because of the war and her mounting debts. Even though her son, Henry Herbert, had become the 6th Earl on the death of his father and was financially comfortable, he refused to help his mother. Since 1923, the mother-son relationship had been strained because of arguments over his legitimacy and his feeling that Almina had selfishly frittered away his inheritance. Henry despised his mother so much that he had her favorite room at Highclere closed off simply to spite her. It was not reopened until his death in 1987. The strained relationship finally came to a head when he reported her to the Inland Revenue for tax evasion and arrears in the 1950s. With the threat of imminent bankruptcy, she made sure she was on favorable terms with her daughter and all her grandchildren. Declared bankrupt, Almina was given £60 a week to live on from the authorities, meaning she had to find a cheaper residence and turned to her favorite grandson, also named Henry Herbert, for assistance, and he helped her get a small house. she was not bitter or resentful. Her infallibly upbeat outlook was helped by what was now her adoptive family, her friend and housekeeper Anne Ledbetter, and Anne's son Tony, whom Almina doted on. Then there was Almina's new and much younger beau, James Timothy Stocking. 30 years her junior, an engineer, Stocking had met Almina while renovating the nursing home in 1942. It was not long before he left his unhappy marriage to move in with the 70-year-old Almina. The Countess found she enjoyed Bristol almost as much as London, as she often delighted in days out in the city, visiting art galleries and attending day concerts. Bristolian people were very welcoming towards her too. Although she liked to keep a low profile, the Bristol cabbies knew exactly who she was and were extraordinarily protective of her, making sure she made it into the house safely after her journey before moving off. Despite her small income, Almina managed to keep a few luxuries, as Tom Page, a Bristolian who lived down the road from Almina, recalled, "I remember an elderly lady in old-fashioned clothes with a chauffeur-driven black Morris Oxford car." Regular handouts from the Highclere estate also allowed Almina and her adopted family an annual holiday in the south of France. As her bankruptcy scandal receded, many old aristocratic friends visited the aging Almina at her modest address, and she was slowly accepted back into society circles. The partial return of her social respectability gave her the confidence to carry on the tradition of Highclere Castle at Hampton Road and host an annual New Year's Eve party. But in 1963, tragedy struck Almina's less affluent but happy life, the unexpected death from a sudden heart attack of her lover, James Stocking. Following this, Almina suffered from a period of emotional withdrawal, finding comfort in embracing her mother's religion, Roman Catholicism. Throughout her carefree life, Almina had always feared chicken and fish bones, instructing her staff at Highclere and chefs in the best restaurants across Europe to take special care with her food. So it was a cruel irony that the oversight of one small chicken bone in her evening dinner put an end to her long and colorful life. Her death went largely unnoticed. There was only a small announcement in the Post. The funeral was functional and included a Catholic Mass, and no eulogy was given. The Countess lived a life that encapsulated the extremes of British nobility, from unprecedented luxury and grandiose social affairs within the walls of Highclere Castle to scandalous personal relationships and financial ruin. Her existence was a rich tapestry of opulent parties, significant historical events, such as the discovery of King Tutankhamun's tomb, and personal tragedies. Despite her dubious birth and the persistent whispers of illegitimacy, she navigated her world with a blend of resilience and grace, often finding herself at the center of society's most salacious rumors. In her later years, Almina's life transformed from public splendor to private struggle, but she remained a figure of enduring fascination and controversy, her story forever intertwined with the legacy of Highclere Castle, the backdrop of the beloved Downton Abbey. Through her highs and lows, Almina personified the contradictions of her era, a woman of formidable influence and deep vulnerabilities, whose life story continues to captivate those who wander the halls of her once splendid home. I hope you enjoyed this week's story on Lady Almina. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe for more. It really helps. And as always, thanks for watching.